Okay, so if you're a parent, I'm pretty sure this is going to sound familiar. Your child can be totally locked in on a screen, like for hours. But the second you suggest, I don't know, building a puzzle or reading a book, you get those two words you've been dreading. I'm bored. It's a massive struggle, and it leaves a lot of us just scratching our heads, wondering what on earth is going on.
I mean, that's the big question, right? What is it about that glowing rectangle that just grabs their attention and holds on for dear life, while everything else seems to fizzle out almost instantly? I promise you, you are not imagining it. This is something parents everywhere are dealing with.
And here's the thing you really need to hear. This is not a willpower problem. It's not a failure of discipline either in them or in you. To really get what's happening, we need to peek under the hood and look at the brain's super powerful motivation system. So let's dive into the science. We are about to solve the mystery of what actually gets your child to do, well, pretty much anything. And it all boils down to one chemical that almost everyone gets wrong. So let's just bust a huge myth right now. We always hear dopamine called the pleasure or reward chemical, but that's not quite right. Neuroscientists have shown that its real job is all about motivation. It's released before the reward. It's the little kick that tells our brain, hey, go get that thing. It's the wanting, not the having. The easiest way to wrap your head around this is with an analogy. Just imagine that your child has a motivation fuel tank. And dopamine? That's the gas. Every single thing they decide to do, every goal they chase, it all requires some of that fuel. All right, so how does this motivation tank actually work day to day? Well, and this is the important part, not all activities use up fuel in the same way. In fact, some of the things that seem the most engaging are actually the ones that drain the tank the fastest. This slide basically explains everything. Digital stuff, games, fast-paced videos, they're like rocket fuel. They give this massive instant jolt of dopamine. It feels amazing in the moment, but it sets the brain's expectation for stimulation way, way up here. But creative play, that's more like a sustainable fuel. It's a slow, steady burn of dopamine that actually builds up a tolerance for things that take a little more time and effort. And the key takeaway here is that the dopamine fuel in that tank, it's a finite resource. So when that digital rocket fuel burns out, it leads to a hard crash. The tank is empty. And that is when you see it, the apathy, the irritability, that total lack of motivation for anything that doesn't promise another huge dopamine hit. They're not just being difficult, their brain is literally running on fumes. And we're not just talking about a bad mood here. The long-term effects are really significant. A brain that gets used to constant, high-level stimulation can actually struggle to develop some really crucial skills. As you can see here, it can mess with everything from their attention span to their ability to plan and control impulses, and even how they read other people's emotions. Now, this brings us to a really profound psychological shift that can happen when this whole system gets out of whack. The brain's entire operating system kind of flips. Instead of being driven to go out and pursue interesting, fun things, its main job just becomes, well, avoiding discomfort. And that right there is the light bulb moment. For a brain that's been rewired by these constant, intense dopamine spikes, the simple state of being bored, of not having that stimulation, it feels genuinely awful. It's registered almost like a form of pain. So when they reach for a screen, it's not just about finding fun anymore. It's a desperate move to escape the pain of being understimulated. Okay, so if that digital rocket fuel is the problem, what's the solution? How do we get them to switch over to that more sustainable, creative fuel? Well, it starts with something that sounds kind of crazy. We have to learn to embrace the very thing they're running from. This is such a huge mindset shift for parents. That whiny, familiar, I'm bored cry, it's not a sign that you failed, it's an invitation. It's the sound of their brain's engine just starting to turn over, getting ready to shift gears from just consuming to actually creating. In fact, this isn't just a nice idea. The research is really starting to back it up. Some recent studies suggest that for healthy development, kids should be getting twice as much unstructured time as they get in structured adult-led activities. Twice as much. That's a huge ratio, and it really shows you how important just letting them be is. So what's the superpower that all this unstructured time builds? It's something called self-directed executive function. That's a fancy term for a simple idea. It's the ability to decide for yourself what you want to do and then actually figure out how to do it. It's the bedrock of things like initiative, problem solving, and self-discipline.
And you don't have to just take my word for it. A big study from the University of Colorado Boulder found this really clear connection. As you can see right here, the more time kids spend in free, less structured activities, the stronger these self-directed skills got. But here's the kicker. The more time they spend in structured activities, like lessons and sports practices, the weaker those skills were. And why is that? Because in those activities, the adult is acting as the executive function for them.
So what's actually happening inside their head during this process? It's this awesome little three-step dance. First, you take away the outside entertainment. Then, the brain switches on something called the default mode network. That's just the brain turning its attention inward. It's the neurological home of daydreaming, of connecting random ideas. And then, step 3, that's where the magic happens. Creativity sparks to life.
All right, let's get practical. Knowing all the science is great, but what do we actually do to help our kids refuel their tanks with that good, sustainable, creative fuel? It all starts with having the right kinds of things around the house. And I don't mean fancy, battery-operated toys that do all the work. I mean the classics, things that can be used in a million different ways. Your basic Legos and blocks, some paper and crayons, or honestly just a pile of cardboard boxes and old sheets for building a fort. These things don't have instructions. They demand imagination. And how you handle it as a parent is just as crucial. Instead of swooping in to solve their boredom, your job is to facilitate it. You could try a boredom jar with little slips of paper with simple ideas on them. Even better, let them see you being unproductive, just sitting with a book or staring out the window. And maybe the most powerful thing you can do is just normalize it. Say, it's okay to be bored, let's see what your amazing brain comes up with next. So let's just pull this all together. We've seen how our kids' brains can get kind of hijacked by constant stimulation, which leaves their motivation tanks totally empty, but we've also seen that there is a powerful, simple antidote.
So I'm gonna leave you with this final thought to chew on. The next time you hear those words, I'm bored, just for a second, try to hear them differently. What if it isn't a complaint for you to fix? What if it's actually an invitation? The sound of an engine starting, right before your child's own creativity, their own inner world, comes roaring to life.